Hope everybody's doing great at this place. Yes? Yes. Good to see you. So, I'm an educationist. And I took up this profession because this was my calling. But not everybody is lucky enough to find their calling. I grew up in a small family where my father, my mother, and I used to stay. And my schooling was done in small cities. Small cities of Bihar, Jharkhand. I never got to go to a category A city when I was doing my schooling. And because I was a single child, no brothers, no sisters, I used to get lots of time to spend with myself. And that is when I took up this habit of reading. As a kid, when you read a lot of comic strips. And I started to read them. And somewhere down the line, I had a fantasy related to the superheroes. I thought I wanted to be a superhero. But during the initial years, I thought it is just me who wants to be a superhero. And then I came into this profession where I have been surrounded by kids, the youth all around. And I see that almost everybody wants to be a superhero. But how does one become a superhero? What are the ingredients that are required to become a superhero? If it was a cookery show at this place, then what would have been the ingredients that I would have asked you to bring along to become a superhero? And that is what my talk is going to be all about. But my talk is going to be around some stories, some real life events that I came across in my life. And then I will connect the dots. The first and the foremost, the basic thing that all superheroes have in common, this man is not a superhero that you see on the screen, but he looks like me. But there's one thing common among all superheroes, but there's some differences also. What the Spider-Man can do is not what Doctor Strange can do. What Thor can do is something different from what Captain America could do. But there's one common thing among all these superheroes. They know what their superpower is, and they stick to it. The question is, how do you get to know your superpower? How did I get to know my superpower? And here is where I get you acquainted to the first story. And the story is about a kid who grew up in a family where there were almost 7 family members. And the finances were not really good. Money was not pouring in, but there were obligations. The family had to be taken care of. And the family was going through a rough patch. And the time was so rough, we here in India celebrate the festival of lights, Diwali. We all do it, right? Yes? Yes. And Diwali has been all pompous show. We bring all the crackers. It has been more of a display rather than a celebration. And kids have been talking among, how much did you buy the crackers for? I bought the crackers for this much. How many crackers are you going to burst? I'm going to burst these many crackers. And this guy, the story about whom I'm going to share with you, his father could have afforded only to bring him 3 crackers. And those 3 crackers were rockets. You know what a rocket is? Where you put that inside the bottle and you fire it and it goes up in the sky and it bursts. But this man's Diwali was only about 3 crackers, 3 rockets. So this particular Diwali, this guy shot the first rocket, but this man wanted to do something different now. So he thought, let's not do the conventional way. Let's take the bottle aside and let's use the hand. And the second rocket, he did it with his hand. And now only the third rocket, the last rocket was left. And now he wanted to make it memorable. And how do you make things memorable? By doing something that is very different. He looked around, and on his right hand side, at his neighbor's home, he saw a huge stack of hay, fodder. And he thought, yeah, this is what I should do. And I'm not asking you all to do this, but this is what he did. And he pointed his rocket towards that stack of hay, shot it, and boom. There was fire all around. And the cause of this fire was this man. And this man knew that he's going to be in big trouble. He took a water hose, ran towards that place, and ensured that he puts off that fire. And he did that. Managed to do that. Came back to his home, slept. As if nobody would get to know it ever. In the morning, he got the shock of his life. The man whose house this man had just burned yesterday was there sipping tea at his place. And he called him, come in. And I can simply think what could have been his heart rate at that moment. And when this kid walked towards that man, and that man walked towards him, the man whose house was set up on fire said, I saw what you did yesterday. There was some person who had set my home on fire, and I saw how you ensured that you put down that fire. You are not a human being. You are the Messiah. You are the messenger of God. This guy went back to his room. And he thought, what has happened? Is it for real? And if it is for real, and if I can fire rockets, and people can come down and praise me, I think I should make a profession out of this. And that is what he did. At that point of time, this guy was almost a 13-year-old boy. He gave in 4 years of his life. Managed to get into the officers training academy at Chennai. Managed to become an officer in the Indian Army. After joining the Indian Army, the second unit where he got placed was the 146 Light AD Missile Regiment. And for all his tenure in the army, he used to wear a blue badge on the top of his uniform that said that he is capable to fire a missile. This is the man. You see. And there are no credits when it comes to the photograph, because I own this photograph. And I own this photograph because this man happens to be my father. This man got to know what a superpower is. And he went against all the odds. And he fought against everything that could have come across his way just for that blue badge. And something like that happened to me also. When I was there on the crossroads of my career, when I had a promising career in front of me, but I knew this is not what I want to do throughout my life. And I went down to my father and I told him, can I get into education, please? He said, do you have the conviction? Do you think you would want to do this? I said, yes. He told, it's going to be a tough path. I know it's going to be tough. Are you sure you would want to do this? Yes. And that is when I started to get into the field of education. And let me tell you, times got tough. Very tough. I remember my days where I used to stay in Delhi. When I ran out of money, I had no money even to eat food. But this very field of education got me all the respect. And this very field of education gave me the lifestyle which I live. And trust me, this is the kind of lifestyle I always dreamt of. You all have superpowers. We all have superpowers. But we never get to know what our superpowers are. But Pratik, how do we get to know our superpowers? Is there a software? Is there an application? No. There are two things. If they coincide, that is a superpower. The first thing, you need to ask yourself, is this that particular thing that I would want to do for the rest of my life, even if I'm not paid for it? Even if you're not paid for it. And trust me, if you're good at it, you will be paid for it. That is how the world goes around. The world would appreciate you. And the second thing, list all the things for which you get appreciation in your life. And the one basic thing for which you get the maximum appreciation, and the one basic thing that you can do for the rest of your life, free of cost, even if you're not paid, that is a superpower. Go after that. It would get you everything you want in your life. It would get you everything you desire in your life. The first thing, you all, we, including me, we all have superpowers. Number two, what do I do once I get to know what my superpower is? You give everything you have. You go all in. You invest yourself into that. We all see successful people around us, and we just see the success, that's it. If being rich would have been a superpower, I think Bill Gates would have been, again, a superhero. If swimming would have been a superpower, I'm sure Michael Phelps would have been, again, a superhuman. And believe me, they are superhumans. But what we get to see is just the success. What we don't get to see is that the same Bill Gates, who has a superpower of money, of being rich, did not take a day off when he was in 20s. He had no Sundays in his life during his 20s. He had no vacations in his life while he was in 20s. And if you talk about Michael Phelps, between 2 Olympics, 4 years of time, where people were resting on Sundays, this man was training himself for 12 hours every day. That was his normal routine. And many times I come across people, hey, it's a Sunday, come on, let's have fun. What would you achieve by doing extra practice on a day in a Sunday? Michael Phelps never said that. And you need not to be a mathematician to understand this. Between 2 Olympics, there are 4 years. Each year has got 54 Sundays. 54 into 4 is 216. And when this guy goes again for the next Olympics, he has 216 extra sessions as compared to the others. And if you get into the percentage modes, it is 15.69%. And there at the level of Olympics, 0.01% matters. And this man has got 15.69% extra. That's the second thing. After you get to know what your superpower is, you invest yourself into it. You give everything you have. You don't look at the calendars. You don't look at the time. You just do it. And after you've invested yourself into it, comes the third thing. You get apprised of the fact. You understand. You appreciate the fact. What you're doing is important. What you're doing is going to bring a change. Even if in one person's life, that's perfect. That's fine. And that brings me to the second story. The story comes from a school. There was a small kid, I think in his second grade, a 7-year-old boy. He used to come down to the school every day shabbily dressed. Shabbily dressed. None of the people used to understand what is going on with this person's life. But there was one teacher who used to constantly ask him, what is the problem? But this child never opened up. And one day, this child broke up in front of that lady and he said, a second grader, a 7-year-old boy, he said, my mother has a paralysis attack. My father drinks a lot. I don't know how to wash my clothes. And this is the best I can do in my life. So can you please stop criticizing me every time you see me in this uniform? And I think a normal person would have said, all right, fine. You have your life, I have my life. Get along with your life, we'll get along with my life. But that is what superpowers, that is what the superheroes never do. This wonderful lady ensured that this child gets to wear a clean uniform every time he comes down to the school. This lady maintained a particular set of uniform for this kid. Every time this guy used to be in a dress that was not particularly suited, this guy was asked to change. That's not the end of the story. The most beautiful thing that happened in this teacher's life, and this I believe in this kid's life, was when this kid was writing his final examination. The particular place that I'm talking about is where you find people who are very religious, very superstitious at times. And on the top of the copy, people used to write the name of all the gods and goddesses they used to admire for all the blessings. I'm sure many of us would have done this. And you know, what was the point that touched that lady teacher? The teacher's name happens to be Mrs. Sonu. And this kid, while he was writing his final exams, on the top he wrote Jai Shri Ram. The second thing he wrote was Jai Shri Krishna. And the third thing he wrote was Jai Sonu Miss. And that lady cried. And I know that lady cried because again, this lady happens to be my mother. But why did I take my father's example and why did I take my mother's example? The world is full of superheroes. Just to make this point, that these superheroes never want the limelight. Nobody would have known my father. Nobody would have known my mother. Nobody would have known me. But trust me, that it doesn't even matter. That doesn't matter. And that is what being a superhero is all about. And that brings me to the fourth thing, the magic ingredient, the last thing that you need to add to this recipe. No matter what your superpower is, no matter what kind of a superhero you are, there are going to be times when there's going to be lots of self-doubt. Lots of self-doubt. Others doubting you is fine, but there would be times when you would be doubting yourself, doubting your own capabilities, and then what do you do at that moment? If finances allow you, please fly down to Italy. And look at this beautiful sculpture that has been made at that place that is called David. David was made by Michelangelo. It is one of the most beautiful pieces of art that has ever existed on the earth. But the most important point is that before Michelangelo started to sculpt that particular thing out of a single marble block, that marble block stayed at the place, put that place for 40 years. And what is more interesting is, it stayed at that place for 40 years because the others rejected it, because they said, nah, nothing can be created out of this. But something beautiful was created out of it. Something beautiful. And each one of us is that marble block. And each one of us is a sculpture. The only thing that awaits is, when do you start to sculpt something beautiful out of it? Because there's going to be lots of self-doubt. As a kid, I used to love to watch this cartoon, He-Man. And every time I was to watch this He-Man, I used to get so much motivated, because He-Man, before becoming He-Man, was a prince who had a feeble animal with him. And when the world needed him, he used to just raise his sword up in the air and used to say, I have the power. Trust me, people. The world might not be needing you, but you need yourself. And the next time you need yourself, you have to raise your hand up in the air, animated or not, and you have to say, aloud or not, that you have the power, because everybody sitting in this room and every person watching this video has the power to be the superhero of their lives. Thank you so much. God bless you.